Hi everyone, my name is Ni Ilham Grado, 631011537.
550 อันที่3มวิรัต
Hi, my name is Hayati Yumaso. My ID 631011523.
Early modern English or early New English is the state of the English language from the beginning of the Tudor period to the English interregnum and Restoration, or from the transition from Middle English in the late 15th century to the transition to modern English in the mid to late 17th century. Before and after the accession of the first James to the English throne in 1603, the emerging English standard began to influence the spoken and written Middle Scots of Scotland. The grammatical and orthographical conventions of literary English in the late 16th century and the 17th century are still very influential on modern standard English. Most modern readers of English can understand texts written in the late phase of early modern English, such as the King James Bible and the works of William Shakespeare, and they have greatly influenced modern English. Towards the end of Middle English, a sudden and distinct change in pronunciation, the great vowel shift started, with vowel being pronounced shorter and shorter. From the 16th century, the British had contact with many people from around the world. This and the renaissance of classical learning mean that many new words and phrases entered the language. The invention of printing also means that there was now a common language in print. Books become cheaper and more people learn to read. Printing also brought standardization to English. Spelling and grammar become fixed, and dialect of London, where most publishing houses were become the standard. In 1604, the first English dictionary was published. This is the tragedy of Hamlet, written by William Shakespeare.
This Middle English period is when the English language began to become more literally documented, as many literature works were written and printed as William Caxton brought the printing press from Europe into Britain. The spelling of English was still irregular, but it was intelligible across a wide geographic length. The biggest factor that changed Middle English into Modern English, however, was the great vowel shift from the 1400s to the 1700s. The reason is unknown as to why the vowel shift happened, but the most common theory has to do with the idea of the anti-French sentiment, precise French loanwords, and preparation migration. The pronunciation of long vowels changed, and some consonants were also affected, with some becoming silent and leading to the modern pronunciations found in English. The 17th century brought towns and their forms of speech gained influence over their own country towns. From around the 1690s onwards, English experienced a new period of internal peace and relative stability, which encouraged the arts, including literature.
Orthography. Shakespeare's writings are universally associated with early modern English. The orthography of early modern English was fairly similar to that of today, but spelling was unstable. Early modern English, as well as modern English, inherited the orthographical convention predating the Great Vowel Shift. early modern English spelling was similar to Middle English orthography. Certain changes were made, however, sometimes for reasons of etymology, as with the silent B, and was added to words like depth, doubt, and subtle. Early modern English orthography had a number of features of spelling that have not been retained. For example, the letter S had two distinct lowercase forms, short S as still used today, and long S. The short S was always used at the end of a word and often elsewhere. The long S, if used, could appear anywhere except at the end of a word. U and V were not considered two distinct letters, but as two different forms of the same letter. V was frequent at the start of a word and U elsewhere. Similarly, I and J were not also still considered not as two distinct letters, but as different forms of the same letter. The vowels represented by AE and A underscore E. For example, in meet and meet, shan't, an A become an alternative. A silent E was often appended to words, as in pig and cornwall. The last consonant was sometimes double when the E was added, hence many for mad and brownie for run. Y was often used instead of I. The final syllable of word like public was variously spelled but come to the standard digit as ick. The modern spelling with ick did not come into use until the mid-18th century.